Hi.
I'll tell you what, if there is anything that can bring a girl back to the book world that has been absent for quite some time, it is a new Emily Henry release. There is just simply no point in opening social media the week or two after Emily Henry launches a new book, because it's just gonna be every other post you see. The FOMO is absolutely unreal. So I just said, you know what, Nikki, I know you haven't touched a book in 5 months at this point, but now's the time. Pull up the big girl panties. We are reading this book because you have reviewed every other book that Emily Henry has written on your channel. So this one is no different. And so I did it. I read the book and here we are. We are going to talk about it. Great, Big, Beautiful Life. You guys know, if you've been watching me for a while, that People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry is one of my favorite books, definitely one of my absolute favorite rom-coms of all time. I love it, which is kind of funny because I feel like that's a book that people either love or hate. And honestly, Emily Henry's last several releases, I kind of feel like that's the case. You either love it, like favorite new book, or you just don't like it, which is kind of weird. And I feel like the discourse around this book has been kind of similar. I've been avoiding reading reviews on it, as I always do, because I want to form my own opinion, but people feel lots of different types of ways about Great Big Beautiful Life, which I think was kind of to be expected because Emily, we're on a first name basis, you know, Emily and I, over the last year she's been promoting it. She's been saying like, this book is different. It's a little out of her comfort zone. It's not like her normal books that she's written, you know, she's just kind of the straight up rom-com queen. She knows how to give you a fluffy, cozy, funny, cutesy romance, and this one was just a little bit different, and reading it, I can tell that is the case. She took a step in the Taylor Jenkins Reid direction, for sure, which doesn't upset me. If anything, it excites me. Like, as soon as I got into the book and I realized what it was going to be about, Taylor Jenkins Reid is my favorite author pretty much of all time, so I was down for her trying something a little bit different. This book very much reminds me of, I mean, so much so, of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And also, it feels like kind of a combination of that and Emily Henry's beach read. So let's dive into it a little bit more. I just want to give the fair warning now. If you are very sensitive to spoilers and you don't want to know anything about this book, go and read it first and then come back and watch this video, because I'm not going to give away like the big things that happen, the big plot twists, the big, you know, moments, spoilers, whatever. But I am going to talk generally about the plot of the book, what happens, my feelings throughout. So here's your warning. Now's your time to exit. If not, hi, let's get into it. This story is kind of two stories in one. It follows two female main characters, the first being Alice and the second being Margaret. So Alice is an up-and-coming journalist, writer. She is kind of new in the space, and she grew up really being a fan of this woman named Margaret Ives. She is a socialite, an heiress. She grew up in this very wealthy, scandalous sort of family that was in the media for decades, and she ended up going on to marry this really famous musician named Cosmo, and then from there she just became even more famous, and she ends up kind of having a bit of a tragic life in the end, and then she goes into hiding after that. People don't know where she is for years now. She's just been a recluse. Like, everyone always wondered what really happened to Margaret Ives, like what happened within her family, what happened within her relationship. No one really knows, which is why this feels very similar to the Evelyn Hugo kind of story, because really same sort of thing. But Alice has always known that like her dream job is to write the Margaret Ives book. She wants to be the person to release to the public Margaret's story in her own words. So she's been spending a lot of years trying to track her down, and basically she successfully does it. She comes across some Reddit page and gets a tip and finds Margaret, and now the book starts with her going to this small little island town where she lives and interviewing with her, and Margaret's ready for this opportunity, ready to tell her story, but she wants to obviously vet the person that is going to do it. She's going to be giving away all of her secrets, her entire life story. She has to really trust that person. So Alice is interviewing for the job, wants it so badly, and as she's leaving, she runs into this man named Hayden, who is now coming into Margaret's house, clearly also interviewing for the job of writing this book. Hayden, on the other hand, unlike Alice, has already proved his worth as a writer. He's already won a Pulitzer Prize. He's written a couple of really iconic sort of biographies. Alice really admires him. So now she's like, crap, I am up against him. So this is a very small town. Like I said, the two of them end up running into each other the same day. And Margaret ends up, you know, they have kind of a not so meet cute. They are two polar opposites, as you can kind of expect in a rom-com, especially an Emily Henry one. She's very like quirky, very sweet, very just ray of sunshine, and Hayden is very sort of grumpy and kind of your typical writer artist type, just not interested in being her friend, and very much keeps to himself. He's very serious about his work, and so doesn't care to entertain Alice and her trying to, you know, talk him up. But the two of them end up meeting again very quickly, because Margaret ends up calling the two of them back to her house to tell them that, you know, she's interested in both of them, but she's still just unsure. This whole process makes her, you know, very anxious, and she just needs to know whoever is writing the story is someone that she trusts. So she wants to give both of them the opportunity to spend the next month with her, kind of alternating days that they're coming and interviewing. And then at the end of the month, she wants them each to sort of write up a proposal for their vision of the book. And then from there, she will, if she likes them, she will pick one of them to write the book, and that is what will happen. And so now, the two of them already, Alice and Hayden, weren't off to a great start when it came to a friendship between the two of them, but now they're actually up against each other for the same dream job. So not the best situation, but from there we end up seeing Alice start to interview Margaret. We start to get her story, and that's where kind of like the second story comes into this book, because you're now alternating between Alice and her, you know, wanting this job, her running into Hayden nonstop in this small town, crossing paths with him, trying desperately to be his friend, and him resisting. And then obviously over time, the more they run into each other, you can expect things start to sort of grow between them. The whole opposites attract of it all, the grumpy sunshine of it all, and things start to brew between them. But then you're also alternating and getting Margaret's story kind of told from her own, you know, voice and memory and all of that. And this is where I think this book kind of, people feel different ways about it. Margaret's story. I am just gonna say right now, whenever the book started into the Margaret story of it all, I found myself many times kind of glazing over reading her chapters. It felt like so much info dump of, I mean, you start at the beginning, you're starting back at like her grandparents, and then you're getting into her parents, and it's a while through the book before you even get to Margaret and her life. And so it was a lot of information, and you start to kind of want to piece together what is this? Like, what is this story? Why do we care? What does it have to do with this greater story? Because that was the other thing. Emily Henry kind of described this book as saying it was a bit of like a mystery, a bit of a thriller almost, in the recent days, like as it came out. So you're just like, what is this gonna be? And yeah, every time, I can't lie, every time I was getting to a Margaret chapter, I was kind of like, because it really broke up the story. It really broke up the Alice and Hayden story, and especially those beginning chapters, just getting to know everything about her family. It just wasn't something that I found myself to be super interested in, but I was along for the ride. And then I kind of have found, especially with her last several releases, Emily Henry, for me, kind of has this like 2/3 phenomenon where I feel like the book, as always, you know, it has to get started. You have to get introduced to the characters. You have to understand what's going on. And then the first third for me, I'm always sucked in. I am gripped. I'm like, wait, like, I always think, like, ever since People We Meet on Vacation, every one of her books, once I get into the first third, I'm like, oh, this is my new favorite Emily Henry book. Like, this is gonna be the one that competes with People We Meet on Vacation. And then right around the halfway to 2/3 mark, I feel like she kind of starts to lose me a little bit, or it gets a little lost in the sauce, or the plot just kind of like stalls, and you're wondering like, where is this really going? And I feel like especially this book and Funny Story, her most recent release, she brings in another element. And those two books both, there was like an element of family that was brought in, a sort of conflict with that. And I will say that element in this book I found to like relate a lot more to than Funny Story. I felt like it really made sense in the story. Alice's father, she was very close with and passed away recently, and so she was always closer to him than she was to her own mother, and her mother have kind of had a bit of a tumultuous relationship, just in the way that her mom doesn't really understand what Alice does. She doesn't really understand her career, her goals, what she wants to do, and they just in general, like, they don't have a lot of common interests. So it's kind of them navigating their relationship now, especially now that the father's not there and it's just them left. And you know, you see just how it is in real life, that a lot of times it's easier to just kind of glaze past things and put on a happy face rather than talk through things and really get to understand each other more. So that was a big part of this story. And then also you see like Hayden has some things with his family and his past, and that's something that him and Alice kind of can come together and make each other feel better about, bond over, talk about. Like that's where I think their chemistry really comes together and where you see them start to really form a bond. So that did happen in the 2/3 mark. And then again, the Margaret story, you're like, where's it going? And I just wasn't sure. I got to the 2/3 and I was not quite sure how I felt. But that being said, once you got to the end, once everything started to come together and you had that, oh my God, moment of knowing why all of this connects and why it all matters and why you care about Margaret's story, because you will by the end. And just the last couple of chapters, you know, the sort of closing of the love story of it all, I was smiling and giggling and kicking my feet, as Emily Henry always makes me do. So I overall enjoyed it. I feel like there were a lot of moments between Alice and Hayden that I really liked. This book, I will say, was a slow burn, which I love. I love a book where we are like 14-year-old teenagers like holding off, just doing everything but, and you know, holding back, because obviously the two of them, you can expect in the story, it's a romance. Hayden and Alice start to form feelings for each other, but at the same time they're still competing for this job, and it's like, okay, we're not going to get together and then 2 weeks from now, whatever, I have stolen your dream job and now you hate me. Like it's very complicated. It's a complicated relationship between the two of them. So it is very much them holding back their feelings, and there's so many times where you think like, will they or won't they? And I love that. I could see how that would very much frustrate other people, because some people don't want that. They just want you to get right into it, and if that's what you want, this book is not going to be for you at all. But I did like it. It is not like my favorite book of all times by any means, but I enjoyed it. It kept me engaged. I flew through it in, I think, like 2.5 days. Like I just simply could not stop reading it. So really, in the end, like it has my thumbs up, my approval. Will I ever read it again? No. Did it outdo People We Meet on Vacation? No. I don't even know where it would fall in my ranking. I think at this point, if I had to just like, it would probably change if you asked me next week, but People We Meet on Vacation is my #1. Happy Place would be my #2. I think 3rd is probably maybe Book Lovers, Funny Story, probably this, Great Big Beautiful Life. It and Funny Story could interchange. And then Beach Read is my least favorite, which I know is such a hot take. Please do not come at me. But as we're talking about Beach Read, I do want to talk about how this book really felt like Beach Read, because just like in Beach Read, that story is about two sort of writers that are working not against each other, but like they're both trying to write a story, and they're having a relationship formed between the two of them. And in both books, they're kind of doing research on things that they want to write. And so just like in Beach Read, whenever, you know, Gus was doing his research on this, like the cult or whatever, and they were going on all their little research outings, like I found that every time that was happening, I was just like kind of skimming over it of like, I don't know why I care about this. Like the story within the story, I didn't care about as much. But in this book, I do feel like it obviously ended up being something that mattered, where in Beach Read, I still at the end was kind of like, okay, all of that felt like fluff to me a little bit. Please don't come for me. I know people love that book, but yeah, very similar vibes in that way. But yeah, I did like it. I like this direction that she's going in. I'm very interested to see what she writes next. I promise you I will read it, because I just always do. Emily Henry's a good bet. But yeah, guys, those are my thoughts. I know people have lots of thoughts and feelings about this book, so I would love to hear all of them down below, discuss a little bit more. I'm sure you guys will mention things that I'll be like, I didn't even think of that, and probably sway my opinion, as you always do. But yeah, guys, I am back, and I promise I'm going to be back around here a lot more often. Things have been a little crazy in life recently. I've been in my super busy season of work, and I've been really focused on writing. My next book comes out July 2nd, The Fine Line. It is the second book in the Between the Lines duet, so that has been taking a lot of my focus, but I am trying to spend a lot less time on screens and a lot more time reading, so you should see me around here more often. But yeah, guys, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon. Bye.